Absolutely. Welcome, everyone, to another free event that we are offering to you. And today's topic is getting the second appointment with none other than Tony Parinello.
Well, thank you, Beth. Is the record button on?
It is on.
All right. Well, welcome, everyone. And thanks for joining in on this free event. Now, of course, we're doing these free events. This is our fourth one. In an effort to get you to know me a little bit, and for me to know you a little bit, and for me to share with you some of the material. And today I'm going to be taking material out of my best-selling book, Getting the Second Appointment, How to Close Any Sale in 2 Calls. Now, before you say, well, wait a minute now, Tony, come on, it takes more than 2 calls to make a sale. Well, I'm a believer in the fact that you can close a sale in 2 calls. Now, you may not be able to finalize the sale. You may not pick up the purchase order. You may not get the check, but you can certainly solidify the business relationship and the opportunity if you do the first 2 calls correctly with the correct individual or individuals. So we're going to dive into the book. Now, the book has 238 pages in it, so no, we're not going to go through all 238 pages. But what I tend to do in the books I write, I tend to take the last chapter and summarize the book, because I know we salespeople are always in a rush to do everything. And so I'm just going to go to the last chapter of the book and pull a couple of points out that you could begin to use immediately at the end of our call today. And I like doing that for all sorts of reasons, because I, like you, I like taking shortcuts. I'm a salesperson. And so I'd like to get immediate results, instant gratification, and see something from my efforts. And so that's what we're going to do. So Beth is going to advance the slides. So Beth, if you would, please go to the next slide, which is our agenda today.
All right, we are there.
We're going to talk about steps you can take to get more second appointments. Now, here's my promise to everyone. I'm not going to suggest to you folks that you do anything that I do not do today in my own sales process. So this isn't something I've just cooked up and I'm just throwing out there and saying, yeah, try this and see if it works. I do this stuff myself. The day I stop doing it myself, I will stop teaching it. And so that's my promise to you. So now, let's get started. Next slide, if you would, Beth. Here's the first of these little nuggets I want you to appreciate today, and that's starting at the top of the organization. If you make your first contact, either by letter, by phone, in person, whatever other modality you choose, to the person at the very top of the organization, and start building the relationship there, you will be able to accelerate your sales process. Now, here's the thing, and I've spent pretty much my adult life teaching people how to do this and doing it myself, how to make the approach at the top on your very first call. The beauty of this, and understandable that the people at the top, they're busy and they may be harder to get a hold of at first, but once you get a hold of them, everything's going to be accelerated, including your sales process and the opportunity. And everything you do with that individual is going to be bigger because they think big. Their world is bigger than anyone else in the organization. So starting at the top is the first step in making sure that you're going to close the sale in 2 calls and be welcomed back in for another appointment, whether it's with the person at the top or it's with someone who reports directly to the person at the top. So that's the first step in this, getting your material together and launching on the president, CEO, owner, or other privileged C-suite individual on your first sales call. Now, Beth, if you would go to the next slide. Let me know when you're there. All right.
We are there.
First impressions. Now, you've often heard that you only get 1 chance to make a first impression. Well, actually, you get 2 chances. But the first impression, the first chance here, is critically important. Now, typically, when you walk into someone's office, typically what happens is that you're invited to take a seat somewhere. You never sit down until you're invited to do so. Now, we're talking about in-person meetings with this person at the top to guarantee you're going to be invited back in for a second appointment. So you walk into their office, you wait till you're invited and directed to sit somewhere, and when you sit down, if it's in front of this person's desk, Don't make yourself so comfortable and start putting stuff on top of their desk. Use your lap. Stay within your own confine and don't start reaching for stuff or putting stuff on someone's desk, especially if it's the person at the top of the organization. Now, typically, the person will offer you their business card, typically. When this happens, I want you to take their business card and look at both sides of it, because sometimes on the back side is some mission statement or their business cards in another language or something like that. And then I want you to take their business card and put it in a business card holder. Now, I want this to be a very nice business card holder. I don't want you to stuff it in your pocket or put it in your briefcase or your purse or anything like that. So get a nice silver or gold-plated business card holder. You're going to put their card in that holder, and then you're going to take your card out. But before you give it to this person, if you want to make the best first impression you can possibly make, I want you to take a moment and sign your business card. On the back of your business card, you could say something like, thanks for the opportunity to meet with you, or here's to a mutually beneficial relationship, or just sign your name or whatever, and then give your business card to this person. Now, when this happens, don't be surprised, because it's happened to me many times. Don't be surprised if the person says, gee, why'd you sign your business card? Now, an appropriate response of yours could sound something like this. Well, we personalize everything we do for our customers and prospects, and me signing my business card is one way of letting you know that I'm going to put my signature on everything we do from this point forward. Now, if you're sitting there saying, oh, Tony, this is stupid, this is salesy, this is crazy, when you take the initiative to do this, you will see the result that you're going to get, and then you'll realize that it's not stupid, it's not crazy, it's not salesy. It's very personal. And the first impression you want to make on this individual is that you buy into everything you do. You take responsibility for everything you do. Beth, if you would, the next slide.
We are on the third. Yep, we are there.
Does it say urgency?
It does.
Okay. Everything in the world of people that sit at the top of an organization is divided by time. Time is critically important to the people at the top. And if you want to guarantee, if you want to lock in your second appointment with anybody at the top, you will express a sense of urgency. Not of urgency for them to buy your stuff because the sale only lasts until the end of the month. Hey, we're reducing our prices for this quarter. No, I'm not talking about the urgency to buy. I'm talking about the urgency to deliver results. Now, for the people at the top, here again, if you want to guarantee a return visit, you will divide everything you say by time. And you will center your discussions with this person to the topic at hand and the business at hand, which is going to spin around one of four areas. And each one of these four areas need to be divided by time. They're interested in growing revenue in the shortest amount of time. They're interested in increasing efficiencies and effectiveness of just about everybody and just about everything in their organization with the common denominator of time, doing it as quickly as possible. They're interested in reducing expenses as quickly as possible, and they're interested in minimizing or mitigating risk as quickly as possible. So your discussion on the first appointment needs to be sensitive to accelerating results and understanding that results are one thing, but results divided by time is another. And so always set urgency with the common denominator of time. Beth, if you would, the next slide. It should say terms and conditions. And let me know.
That's right.
All right, now
we're there.
Here's something that I want you to take serious consideration of. Before you end your first conversation or in-person meeting with the person at the top, you are going to offer them your standard terms and conditions of the sale. Now, here again, before you roll your eyes and say, Tony, this is nuts. We haven't spec'd out the equipment. We haven't gotten to do our due diligence. How could we offer up our terms and conditions? It's been my personal experience that everything we sell has terms and conditions. Many of the terms and conditions are specific to the configuration of whatever you're selling. I understand that, but many of the terms and conditions are standard terms and conditions. But here's the point. When you hand over your terms and conditions to the person at the top at the first meeting, and you say something like, when you get a chance, would you please take a look at these? These are our standard terms and conditions. I've taken the opportunity to highlight everything in yellow that we have a little wiggle room on. There are some areas that I've highlighted in red that there's no wiggle room, and the other areas I've highlighted in red are things that will be specific to the configuration of whatever it is you decide to invest in from us. If you would, please take a chance. Take a chance, pass it by your legal people, take a look at it yourself, and see if anything in this document will cause a problem. Now, when you do this, don't be surprised if the person at the top offers you a job. Don't be surprised if they say, are you looking for a job? We would love to have our salespeople do this, because it is a really critical step in every sales process that's usually salespeople wait until the end of their sales process to offer up their terms and conditions. That's a huge mistake, because you have so much invested in the prospect at that time. You've jumped through all the hoops. You've done all the demos. You've done all the presentations and proposals. And now, at the end of the sales cycle, you slide your terms and conditions over to the prospect, and they say, oh, I gotta take a close look at this, or we got to pass it by the legal department. Unbelievable risk you've just put out there for yourself at the end of your sales cycle. Because let's just say you do this at the first meeting, and the person at the top says, you know what, we can't live with this spare parts support for only 2 years. We need 5. Or we can't live with your warranty policy, or we can't live with. You need to find this out very quickly. Now, here again, you're establishing a business rapport with the person at the top, because this is how the person at the top sells. This is what they do when they make a sales call. And so offer up your terms and conditions, understanding full well that there are things that'll change, and you will highlight those, but there are stuff that will never change and you can't change, and why not get that out of the way at this point in time? Beth, if you would, the next slide, it should say personal expectations.
It certainly does.
Thank you. On your first appointment, you must find out what the individual that you're meeting with, and hopefully that individual is the person that is sitting at the top, what their personal expectations are of you and your company. And I want you to use those words. What are your personal expectations of us? What are your personal expectations of my organization? What are your personal expectations sets the stage with this person at the top that you understand that they are driving the bus. Now, the sooner you factor this in to your dialogue with this person at the top, the better off you are. You will build instant rapport and begin to gain trust when you follow this process. So the conversation, and very quickly I might add, needs to spin around what this person expects personally from you and the products, services, and solutions that you represent and the company that you represent. When they answer that question, and don't be surprised if when you ask them what their personal expectations are of you, your product, service, and solution, and the company you represent, don't be surprised if they look at you and say, that's a good question. And then when they answer it, make sure you write down everything they say. As a matter of fact, on your first appointment and every appointment that you have with people at the top, make sure you're taking notes and make sure you ask them if it's okay to take notes. And here again, don't be surprised if when you say to somebody, hey, is it okay if I take notes? Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. Take notes. Don't be surprised if during the conversation, when perhaps they start to share with you that there's an acquisition in the road ahead, or there's a merger in the road ahead, they might say to you, I would like for you not to write this down. Let's go off record. Don't be surprised when that happens. So you're going to ask permission to take notes, and you're going to find out what their personal expectations are of you and your organization and the products, services, and solutions you represent. Beth, if you would, the next slide. It should say last impression.
It sure does.
Thank you. So now, let's just say it's the end of the meeting, and you're walking out the door. I want you to stand at the threshold of the door, and I want you to turn to the person at the top and thank them for their time, of course. But now, I want you to do something that is totally opposite of what most salespeople have been taught to do. Most salespeople have been taught when you enter someone's office, you use an icebreaker. You look at something on the wall, the picture of a ship or something in the corner, a gold-plated golf club, and to break ice and reduce the tension, you say, well, that's a nice model of a sailing boat. Do you sail? Or that's a lovely gold-plated golf club. Do you play golf? This icebreaker we've been taught to use is stupid. We should never use an icebreaker to reduce tension. I mean, who's tense? The person we're meeting with probably isn't tense. It's very self-serving, and it takes you away from the purpose at hand and getting down to business. However, when you're leaving the office, I want you to stop. And if there was a gold-plated golf club or tennis racket or baseball, whatever, you noticed when you came in the room that you did not mention, at this point when you're leaving, you thank them for their time, and then you say something like, the next time we get together, you got to tell me the story about that gold-plated golf club sitting in the corner over there. When you do that, here's what will happen, and don't be surprised when it does. The person's going to say to you, why wait till then? Let me tell you about it now. I got the gold-plated golf club because I hit 2 holes in 1 in the same game, or whatever. They're going to go off on this highly emotionally charged story that is going to connect you to that gold-plated golf club or anything else that you mentioned. Now, this is human psychology. We've been talking about neurolinguistic programming for years, since the 60s. This is called anchoring. You're going to anchor you to that golf club, and after you leave, when that person looks at that golf club, they're going to remember you. And it'll be for a short period of time, but it'll be anchored to that golf club, and you'll do it on the way out the door, not the way into the door and into the office. Now, here's my advice. My advice is take all of the stuff you just heard in the last 17 minutes and put it to use. But pick and choose if you want. But start taking action on what we talked about. Now, Beth, can you chime in here and let me know, do we have some time to take some questions? Would you like to do that or not?
Yeah, absolutely. We can take a few questions.
Okay,
so
go to the next slide. Go to the next slide.
Okay.
Just sit on that Q&A slide then if we have time. And then how would people post a question? Is there a way for them to do that?
Yes, you can. There is a hand icon to the left of your little dashboard. You can click on that. I will unmute your line, and we can take your question. You can also use the chat feature, and I will ask the question on your behalf.
And keep in mind, folks, that everything we just covered in the last 18 minutes or so has been recorded, and you're going to get the recording of this shortly after this event. So that'll be helpful. And we'll just park it here for a moment to see if there's any questions at all about what I mentioned to you this morning or anything else that that might have you wondering about, either myself or my process or my books or what we talked about.
All right, Tony. David has a question. He says, at what point should we ask to schedule the next meeting?
Oh, my God, David, that's a great question. Okay, so here's my take on this. If we do a really good job on the first conversation and first appointment, the person we're speaking with will offer that. They'll say, well, what's our next step or whatever. or here's what I want you to do. I want you to go talk to this person or that person, or send me this or send me that. They'll usually, if we do a good job, invite us to some action. Now, if they don't, right? If we're sitting there thinking, okay, how do I prompt the next appointment? Then I want you to throw the ball in their lap and say, toss the keys to the bus to them and say something like, what's the next best step you would like for us to take to see if we can deliver similar or greater results or whatever? Yeah, put it in their lap. What's the next best step? Now, that's an open-ended opinion and directive question. You don't want to ask them, would you like to have another appointment, or would you like to set up another call? Because that's a closed-ended question, and it's either going to be a yes and a no, and if it's a no, it's very hard to recover from and reconfigure the question at that point. So if they don't invite us, we're going to say something as simple as, what would you like to see us do next? What's the next best step? Or who else in your organization would you like to involve in the conversation, in the next conversation? Yeah. Make it very open-ended, make it very opinion-based, and but wait and see. It's been my experience, when you do a really good job on the first appointment, first conversation, first call, you'll be invited in without even asking. So I hope that answers your question, David.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Okay, Laura had a question. How do I talk about terms and conditions for services in education and which don't exist so far and they don't require of me or even know about them?
Wow, Laura, I would strongly recommend that each of us, when we make a sale, have some sort of terms and condition of the sale that clearly outlines the responsibilities of the person you're selling this product, service, or solution to, and the responsibilities that we are going to have. Now, you don't want to make your terms and conditions, 35 pages long. This can be very simple. It could be 4 or 5 expectations that you have of them, 4 or 5 expectations that they have of you. It could be something as simple as payment terms. I mean, those are terms and conditions, payment terms. Do you require payment upon delivery of the product? Do you require it in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? Having that document becomes very important when people drag their heels to pay us. So I would invite you to go to your organization and present that to them because of 2 reasons. One, it's helpful in the resolution of any problems, and it's very helpful in our sales process because it helps us pre-qualify the individual that we're sliding the terms and conditions across the table to. Here's an example. Let's say we do that and the person says, oh, I'm not the person that would be looking at these, or I don't have the authority. You're going to know right away that you're sitting with someone that is not the person who's going to make the decision to buy your stuff. And that's very helpful to know in our sales process. So, Laura, I hope that helps. And thank you for the question. Anybody else?
All right. So Kendrick asked, is the content here covered in the Getting the Second Appointment book?
Yes, it is. It's actually at the last chapter, there's like 10 power steps. We've only covered a couple of them. The book is very rich in a lot of different situations that happen on a first call situation, an objection that comes up or something like that. Now, to help you understand a little bit more that's within this book and a little bit more about what we do, this is our 4th free session, Beth, is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. If you'd like, we can send you the archives of all 4 sessions, which unveils some other materials, not only from this book, but from 1 or more of my other 9 books that I've written on the subject of getting appointments at the top and getting back in to see people after you've had your first engagement, and just how to accelerate your entire sales process. So if you'd like, you can get your hands on, and Beth can send that to you. They're free, so there's no charge for that. But this is our 4th one, so you can get 3 others and expand your knowledge about this stuff a little bit more. Yeah. Hope that helps.
I'll actually include all of those when I send this one out to this group. He also was wondering where he can purchase it or get the PDF in online format. You can purchase it off of Amazon. Unfortunately, we do not have the PDF online format, so we're all in the same boat there. It's the only book that we don't have.
Yeah, and it's nice to hold the book in your hands and footnote it, and if you want, after you buy it, send it to me and I'll sign it for you.
It actually says that they're temporarily out of stock on Amazon, but order now and they'll deliver when it's available. So there you go.
What other questions might you folks have before we move on to our busy day?
Okay. Eugene asked, I use LinkedIn as a networking tool. Is there a different approach that you would suggest with social media appointment setting rather than in person? Thank you for the training and taking my question.
Eugene, so I'm not going to be much help in the use of social media to reach out and prospect, and I'll tell you why. I'm old school. I like personally picking up the phone and calling people. And so I believe, I'm a firm believer of the sales process starts when you have a conversation. Now, how do you get the conversation? Yes, you can use LinkedIn, you can send an email, you can reach out to people. Yes, all of that applies if you use those different modalities in an effective way to set the appointment. And I talked at great length about this in one of my other books called Selling to Vito, the Very Important Top Officer. Vito, V-I-T-O, is an acronym for Very Important Top Officer. I teach people how to write the correspondence. I even have a program where I will write the correspondence for you. And I will create the opening statement that you say to someone over the phone for you in the voicemail messages. So I take you through that whole process while I hold your hand. But to answer your question, social media is great if you use it effectively and you pre-qualify as you use it. And the sales process, in my opinion, starts when you have that first conversation. Now, if your territory is global or national or regional, I understand that you're not going to be dropping in on people and having in-person visits as much as you're having connections through other modalities. But here again, the conversation, the one-on-one conversation, not the text, not the tweet, not the email, not the letter, but the live dialogue that we have with people really starts the trust building. I shouldn't say starts the trust building, but really capitalizes on building trust and capitalizes on our greatest competitive advantage, which is us. Yeah, hope that helps, Eugene. Who else has a question?
All right. Got another question. What steps are different if the first meeting is over the phone?
Oh, well, that's another great question. Who's asking that? What's the name of the person?
It's David again.
David again. Well, David, this is another great question. So if the first conversation is over the phone, of course, the business card won't work. The terms and conditions can. You can bring that topic up over the phone, saying that you will be forwarding to them the terms and conditions on an email or something like that. The mentioning of something as you exit may not work. However, if you do a fair amount of research on an individual and you find out that they went to a particular university, that they are particularly fond of a particular fundraising activity that they sponsor or a foundation that they have, then you could use that in a conversation at the end of the conversation. Let's just say they have a foundation for clean water, to provide clean water in countries that do not have that luxury. You can ask them that the next time you have a conversation with them, you would love to find out how they started that foundation or why they started that foundation or what's personally important to them about delivering clean water to third world countries. great way to end the conversation. So you could use that in the absence of being in someone's presence over the phone. What else? Personal expectations you can certainly use. You can certainly ask that question. So I think the only thing that really sticks out if you don't do research and you don't know something either personally or professionally about the individual would be the business card, handing up the business card. However, if you ever send your business card to someone, you can certainly sign it. Looking forward to meeting with you in person someday or whatever. Yeah. Hope that answers your question, David.
Okay, let's take one last question, Tony. Is there anything I can do if they do not find my services are relevant to them?
Well, yeah, there's a couple of things. We should really know before we make an approach if our services are relevant to someone. It's called pre-qualifying, and I teach a particular tactic about how to pre-qualify people so you know they're predisposed to buy from you, so you never run into this, we don't need it, it's not something that applies to us. That indicates that our targeting is off, okay? Now, let's just say you're targeting spot on, but you still hear this is not relevant to us. That might be a no for now, but not a no forever. And so you might want to question as to, what particulars, what in particular about what you're offering them is not relevant? Do they see if it would be relevant in the future? And if it still comes back with a no, 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 it's often said that asking for a referral before you've delivered any value is going to dictate the value of the referral. But you could at that point ask them if there's anyone in their organization or in their circle of friends or family or associates or associations that they belong to that they feel someone that they know might be able to use what it is you're talking about. But I want to go back to that first point. We really need to pre-qualify and understand before we pick up the phone or write the letter or send the email or whatever that the person we're doing this with is predisposed to buy from us. And I do have an e-lesson that covers that. Yeah, a little bit too lengthy to get into now, but very good question. Okay, so now we're up against the half hour here, and I want to respect everyone's time. Beth, if you could go to the last slide.
Okay, we're there.
Okay, so now, folks, I have something called Club Veto. And it's a way for you to put me on your team personally and working with you one-on-one to get C-suite appointments, get second appointments, and help accelerate your sales process. We do live weekly web clinics. As a matter of fact, we have one right after this for our members. We do live Q&A where you can ask me any question that's got you stuck or stymied. We do live coaching and role-playing. Everything is archived, and we have e-lessons that cement all this stuff into place. It's called Club Veto. And perhaps when you send out the archive to this, you can send a link for people to find out about Club Veto. And so I would invite all of you to check that out. And at the end of the session here, if something comes to mind and there's a question that you had that you didn't have an opportunity to ask, when you get the archive of this, just ping Beth back at her email, which is real simple. It's just beth@sellingtoveto.com. Just ask her the question, and I'll get that back to you. So if something comes up after this event. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. Beth, I want to thank you for bringing us all together. And I know everybody's very busy, so thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. And I would really like to see some, if not all of you, participate in Club Veto, which comes with a money-back guarantee. If I do anything that you don't find useful, you get your money back, period, no questions asked. So, Beth, I'll leave the last word for you. Here again, have a masterful rest of the day, folks.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.